Hello, Holistic Heroes. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Lily McNamara with Lily of the Light, and we are here with Dawn Grace Kelly, and she has joined us to talk about astrology and to break a bunch of myths that a lot of people have about how it can be beneficial in their life. So thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, yay. Yeah, so nice that you're having me here today.
So tell us a little bit about you. Let the followers get to know how fabulous you are. I already know, but I'd like them to know too.
Okay, sure. So first and foremost, I'm a spiritual healer, and that's something I began 30 years ago. I'm an ex-flight attendant, which is a past life in this lifetime for me. And past life regression is something that I teach. I've got an online school where I teach therapists regression therapy into past lives, between lives, also inner child work. So the whole, counseling, psychological realm, deep into working with trauma on that level. I also teach tarot. I write. I've got an awesome book about self-healing. So I think, healings. I'm a spiritual healer, and I've got all of these amazing tools to take people to the root of where their actual issue is. And my passion lies with teaching light workers or therapists to really broaden out their skills. So it's so we're moving more into the greater reality rather than just this sort of 3D reality.
Yeah, I love it. I do. And I've always viewed you, since we started talking, as like the teacher of the teachers. Like, you teach the teachers how to be better at what they do. And one of the things is that you are trained in so many different modalities, and you use so many different modalities. And that's kind of what why I asked you to talk about astrology, even though it's not one that you teach, is that there are modalities that we can use to help ourselves that we don't have to be fully trained in. Like, we can just use them to benefit ourselves. So, like, how has astrology changed or benefited you in some way?
Well, astrology is something that's been in my world for what seems like forever, because my mum was studying astrology when I was a young girl. So those kind of teachings were always around me. So by osmosis, I just learned a bit about astrology. But yeah, I've never studied astrology as such. I don't know how to draw a chart up or anything like that. But it's been woven through my life as a constant. And when you talk to my mum, you're talking astrology, no matter what you're talking about. It drives some people crazy. But yeah, so it has been on my radar for a really long time, just as a normal thing in my world, I guess. And I did start studying it at a basic level when I was a teenager. So I know a little bit about it. Yeah. I forgot what your question was. How it's helped me?
Yeah, changed your life in some way, benefited you in some way.
Changed my life. Yeah. Okay. So changed my life in some way. Well, it was always there, so I guess it hasn't changed it. But the benefits for me would be, I've had the luxury of having an annual forecast done for my birthday every year, which is what Mum does. So I would miss not having that forecast. So having the forecast from a professional astrologer who knows you deeply and intimately from your birth time and everything that brings forward, that's allowed me to be able to pick up that forecast and go, oh, so that it makes sense why everything's feeling so crap at the moment. Mm-hmm. It actually makes sense, and that's these aspects and these planets, and that's what's happening there, and that brings some relief to know that it's not just all me. It is actually that it's me, but it's to do with the energies that are vibrating around me. So that's on a more deeper level, I guess, when you've got a chart done. But on a more basic level, just following what the moon does and knowing some of the stronger the more dominant astrological energies, that is life-changing. So I'll talk more about the moon because I know a little bit about that, and that's something I want everybody to know, because without much knowledge at all, there's some very simple things you can do around that, and that's pivotal. So to come back to your question, when I think about the full moons, without this knowledge, I would be crazy girl every time these big moons were happening. And yeah, I can talk more about the moons, but how it's helped me is I'm not crazy girl every time. When I know when these aspects are, I can breathe and do all sorts of different things to not be so reactive around the energy. So what it makes for is a happier me, less arguments, less distress, less banging my head on the wall, all of those things. So on the day-to-day, just some stuff like that's really helpful to know.
Definitely. And for me, it's a lot of like, I love the annual forecast. Like I think everyone should get that done. Hopefully annually, but at least once in their life. I got like a big one done a few years ago, and I recorded it and then journaled about it. And I have like 6 pages of journaling about it, at like typed, not written. Oh no, typed up, single space. And it was so informative of like, okay, do this at this time, move this here. And it just, and that's, I think, like with the moon cycles and everything, it just makes your life easier. Astrology has the ability to make your life easier. Does it make your life perfect? No. Does it help? Oh yeah. So I feel like that's kind of the benefit. And then for me, the other thing is understanding that a chart, for those watching, like a chart is very in depth, like your birth chart and everything. But there are 3 main ones that a lot of people will look at, and that's your sun, moon, and rising sign. And I realized where I needed to focus those in my life. Like my rising sign is Leo. And so when I'm at events and when I'm networking, oh, it's all Leo. But when I'm doing like my back end work of my business, it's very Scorpio. It's very intuitive. It's very deep and just intense.
And that's your sun sign, Scorpio, is it?
Moon.
Oh, your moon sign. Okay, yeah.
I decided I decided to run my business intuitively instead of logically. And so leaning into my moon sign just made sense. And so realizing where you can put your signs in your life can also make your life easier. So that's one of the things that I benefited from when I was like, okay, what are the strengths? Where do I put them? Because guess what? Being a sassy Leo, when you're sitting there doing like a P&L sheet and you're discussing expenses is not going to be helpful at all. But sitting there and going, I can figure this out, you know, is much better. So
can I just speak to that actually? Because that's really interesting. I love that, Lily, and I'd love to see more of that knowledge out there in the world, because this is, when you say astrology makes your life easier, I think it's that simple. And life is complex. We want it easier. But just on that ascendant there, I've got a Leo ascendant as well. So yeah, I remember from our chat now. I love my Leo ascendant. And the ascendant's interest, you do need an astrologer for that. So that's worth finding an astrologer for just, well, you can probably find that on the internet anyway, with your birth time, with yeah, I don't know where you could find that. I'm sure it's out there. But knowing your ascendant is so helpful, because this is who that's what you present as when you're out there in the world. And people who don't know you and might know a bit about astrology, they tend to pick people's ascendants more than they pick their sun signs, right? Because our sun sign is more like what we are like with our close friends and our family and maybe at home. So we've got this sort of persona that we're moving into with the ascendant. That's what Mum always talks about. That's what we're aspiring to be more of in this lifetime with our ascending sign. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in because it's interesting.
I love that. That's who you're aspiring. Oh, I love that. That is a mindset. That is absolutely like a thing that you can focus on and set intention with, is that you aspire to be your ascending sign, or any aspect of any of your signs, really. So one of the things that I want to talk about is, I have my list of questions. For those of you who are new to watching, I go on tangents, and so I have a list of questions next to me so that I do not do that. So if you ever see me like looking down, that's what it is, followers. Astrology, just like the vast majority of things that the modalities that we learn and teach and do in our sessions, is complex. Like I'd love to say it's simple. It's not. It's incredibly in-depth. And how do you feel like astrology can benefit anyone, whether they know everything or not? Like, or should you take a course, or do you have to be an expert astrologer to get benefits from astrology? I have my own feelings about this, but let's go to you first.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, I'm not a professional astrologer, so I'm a walking testament that you don't need to know how to draw a chart up to benefit enormously from astrology. However, the more you learn about it, the more you tend to head that way, possibly. I've just been getting the books out recently, and I'm getting more interested in the houses and what's in the houses and things that I haven't really needed to be interested in before, because Mum just gives me the information. So I think, so the short answer is no, you do not, because there is some basic things. Drawing up a chart is, well, maybe people want to know what an astrology chart is, which is a map. It's literally a map of the heavens when you were born. It's a map of where every single planet was in relationship to whereabouts in the world that you were born. So calculating that is a lot of maths. You need to be a bit mathsy, definitely mathsy, and be able to concentrate with all the numbers and stuff to do all of that. But I was never interested in that, and I benefit enormously. So short answer, no, you do not need to train in it to benefit.
Exactly. And I agree. And I think that's a really big myth when people start getting into astrology and they're like, oh my God, I don't know the houses. I don't know the planets. I don't know what a sextile is. Why is something squared? And they just get overwhelmed. And you can benefit if you just know your sun sign, which is the easiest sign. That's the one where someone looks at you, what's your sign? That's the one you always say. And I remember I was talking to someone who, it is not, I want to be clear, they are not like in the spiritual realm. They are not a professional like us. They are just a person. Not there's anything wrong with that, but they're just a person. And they asked me, like, what's your zodiac? And I said, oh, sun, Cancer, moon, Scorpio, Leo rising. And they said, that's not what I asked. And I'm like, yeah, it is. Because they didn't understand that, like, they were looking for my sun sign and for me to just say I'm a Cancer. But I didn't know that, because when people ask, like, what's your sign, what's your zodiac, I always go with the big three. And so you don't have to know everything. Like, you can know just your sun sign and still benefit. But I also agree with you. The more you know, the more you grow with any spiritual modality that you're dabbling in or training in. So absolutely, like, start with just your sun sign, then go to your big three, then go to more. I personally am not drawn to the houses. I have such little interest in the houses. I love the planets. I love the zodiac signs and how they interact with the planetary placement. I love that. When someone's like, it's in my second house, I'm always like, I'm gonna have to look that up. I'll have to where's the buck?
Yeah.
And so and that's the other thing. If you're drawn to it, awesome. If you're drawn to a certain aspect of astrology, lean into that, because you're going to enjoy it more, and it should be fun.
Yeah, totally. So just on the sun signs, if you just know your sun signs, then you can read anything on the internet or any book a little bit about your personality. And even just seeing that it's so general, of course, because an astrology chart is big and your sun sign is a strong part, but it's a small part of it. But when you learn a little bit about your nature just based on your sun sign, that can bring so much relief. So much relief.
Yes.
It's like, this is the way that, and then you can settle it in and anchor into more of who you actually are, instead of getting frustrated with yourself because you're picky and critical all the time because you're a Virgo. You're supposed to be picky and critical. It's actually a strength. And yes, it can annoy some people.
Yes.
But some of our strengths can be our,
oh my gosh. Yes, I love that. And with that, I dated a Virgo, and I was talking to it years ago, and I was talking to his family. They were like, he would not sleep unless every single stuffed animal was in an exact spot. He was the most difficult baby. Everything had to be just so. And I am laughing, and they're like, okay. And I'm like, he's a Virgo. That's fine.
He's supposed to be like that.
It's
that's right.
normal. And well, like with me, I'm a Cancer sun sign. And like growing up and being incredibly emotional, little moody, incredibly emotional, little sensitive, that like, I now know that. But the biggest wow for me and my sun sign was actually buying a house. Like, because I always rented or lived with my parents or anything. When I bought, I did not know how much of a nester I was until I bought my own house and it's all mine and I made it my own. And I am so creepily protective of my living space because it is an extension of me. Like if you come into my house, you're coming into my soul. And I'm like, there's no need for that. So just your sun sign can mean so much. Like I did not think that it would affect how I decorate my house, how I would live in my house, but it does, because Cancers are a crab. And so their house is part of them. And we are so very, very protective of that piece that we need.
And, you know, I'm thinking, I get this. I love that you're a Cancer and you've got your own home. I got a Cancer moon and I had similar vibes when I got my own home as well. But it's got me thinking, Lily, that some of these, you know, you see the negative traits and the positive traits, but I'm feeling that like some of what people might call a negative trait done in excess could bother people, but done with purpose and in alignment, it becomes a strength, right? So even just being super moody as a Cancer, that also gives you the ability to process more of your emotions if you can drop out of your head. And if you process more of your emotions, then you get more, you know, you've got a natural bent to process emotions. But if you just stay with the thoughts, then you're going to get annoying because you're blocking it off. So I think they have a flip side as well. The traits.
And I think you're right. Anything in excess is not really healthy. It can become a toxic trait. And it's like with being a Cancer and being sensitive, like I'm incredibly empathic. And of course, I don't want anyone else to feel pain. That's 100% real. But then also I think of Virgos, and this is actually something that I've talked about with several of my friends, that is the sign that I will most often date, is a Virgo sun sign. And it's because them being so particular is so grounding to me. I do not know what it is, but like, I always know where I stand because it's XYZ. Everything has to be particular. I'm like, I can move within that. Like, I'm never like, oh my God, what's going on? Do you like me? I'm always like, as long as I put the milk back where I found it, we're going to be chill forever.
This is right. I love this. And I'm thinking, I'm a Capricorn. My son's Capricorn. And it's got me thinking, as Capricorns thinking about money all the time, amongst a few other things, but they just do. And so instead of thinking you're some neurotic person who obsesses over money, it's like, okay, money's a thing because I'm a Capricorn. So what it means is you can grow money, you can invest money well, you can make money well. So it becomes a strength as well as, oh, you must be a Capricorn because you're talking about money again. So I think we can see that if we align these traits in a positive way, like what poor Virgos are getting a hard time from us. I've got 3 planets in Virgo, by the way. I'm so Virgo. And, you know, I used to, in my 20s, when I was younger, before I knew a little bit more about my astrological makeup even, I used to be very vocal about how I disliked Virgos. You know, I had a bit of ego going on. It's like, I don't like them. They're pulling fluff off your jumper all the time. They're annoying, right? And of course I didn't like them because I'm looking at aspects of myself, right? And as soon as I was able, oh my God, I'm actually really quite Virgo and I never knew. And then embracing the shadow and then lifting out into more of the positive things, you know, us Virgos can research really well. We can analyze, we can get organized. So, you know, I'm kind of fascinated in this negative, positive trait and how they cross over.
Yeah. And with the negative and positive, I have a really hard time with anyone who is, I don't want to be mean and say so uneducated, but who believes that the negative traits of their sign gives them permission to do certain things. Like I have met certain Leos who have just been like, but I'm a Leo, and so it's my way or the highway. And I'm like, step in front of a bus, leave me alone. Don't bring that kind of energy in here. I've also met Geminis who have looked at me straight in the face and said, I am a Gemini. Okay. I cheat. No, you cheat because you can't keep your knee shut. That's why you cheat. Like there are traits, like we said, that can add and explain things, but we as ourselves make them toxic. Like we overuse them or use them as excuses. Like no sign or trait is inherently bad or toxic or negative, but people
Correct.
using them as like an excuse for poor behavior is a huge pet peeve of mine. And so when people do it, I'm like, oh, bless your heart. Don't talk to me anymore.
Yeah, we could get a new term on the table here. It's like astrological bypassing, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. It's a thing. I don't know how prominent it is where you're from, but in the metaphysical community in the US, it is a real thing for people to use their astrology like on a regular basis to be like, well, this is why I'm this way, or this is why I deserve this. Like people who will say like, I'm a Capricorn, I work really hard and therefore I deserve the last cookie. And I'm like, you didn't work hard today. So no, you don't get the cookie. The cookie was not meant for you.
Yeah, bad Capricorn. Yeah, no, I don't see a lot of that, but I have seen it as well. So I can imagine. That's interesting to hear that that's going on. So just coming back to sun signs a little, when you were just talking about knowing that as enough, I just want to throw a little bit more in about if for any of your followers who do just know their sun sign and nothing else. Because I was thinking, what else can you do with your sun sign? But of course, it's really helpful to know who you like hanging out with. That's helpful as well, because in astrology there's some basic stuff, right, Lily, where we've got these 4 elements. So there's 4 elements: earth and fire and water and air, like the classic 4 elements, and the signs, there's 3 in each of those, and we tend to love people who are part of our element. So Lily's going to love Scorpios and Pisces.
See, and I think so weird. And all signs are created equal. Please do not think that I have a bias. Anyone who's watching this is not meant to be a thing. I cannot stand Pisces. I have such, and I can't stand Cancers either. Like I cannot be, it's too much. It's too much of one thing for me.
It's too much of me, probably, is what you see.
It is. I'm like, I am a lot. And so having anything that's like me around me, I'm like, oh, that is just too much. I love earth signs because they're so grounding. And I actually, I don't know if you've noticed this, as you've gotten older, like obviously Virgos, I connect with very deeply. I'll always have love for them. But as I gotten older, I have really appreciated Aquarius where I never did before. Like I got way more into like resonating with air sign the older I got. But when I was younger, I was just like flighty, overthinking, critical assholes. And then now I'm like, oh my God, they are so smart and weird. And I love weird so much. And so it like, as I grew up, I resonate with different signs more or less. And like air signs.
Absolutely. Oh, Lily, that's really interesting as well. And totally I relate to that, because I think there's something about maturity there's a lot about maturity, but as we mature, if we're maturing consciously, obviously there's some organic maturity that would play into it, but conscious maturing, we're integrating more and more aspects of ourselves.
Yes.
And that allows us to be open to more and more aspects of everybody else and those kind of signs. And I've totally been the same as you. And yeah, I can totally see the benefit in all these air signs. It's one element that I don't have a lot of. So I have my partner, my long-term partner, he has many air signs. So that complements me and brings out that little bit of air in me where I can meet him in a place that I wouldn't naturally normally go. So it can expand out parts of us like that as well. Yeah.
Definitely. I love that. Yes.
Yeah. And the other thing about sun signs too is, so we often do merge into those elements. And I hear you, sometimes there's just too much reflection, or if you've got too much water, then it can be too much. I totally get that. But we also are attracted to our opposite sun sign. So every sign has an opposite one that was born 6 months after you. So you will get on with Capricorns generally.
Yep.
Yeah.
My mom is a Capricorn, and it's so funny because when people see us, they're like, oh my God, I have never met anyone who is so alike and yet totally opposite. And I was like, yep, that's us. We are literally at opposite ends of the chart. And they're like, seriously? I'm like, yeah, but now that you see it, you can really see it. And they're like, oh, so yeah, it's Capricorn.
Opposites attract, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll whiz through. Let's see if we can remember them all in case people want to know. So Capricorn, Cancer is a pair.
Yep.
Leo, Aquarius.
Yes.
They're opposite, so they will get on together. Aries, Libra.
Yes.
Aries and Libra. Gemini, Sagittarius.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, these are people you'll have in your world. Pisces and Virgo.
Yes.
And Libra, what does that leave us with? Libra, Aries, we did that. Is that all of them?
Who's
Scorpio.
Taurus with?
Scorpio, Taurus.
There we go. Yeah, I was like, Taurus
Scorpio,
is in there
Taurus.
somewhere. Yeah, it's like opposites attract. And so I have 5 Cancer in my chart. Like I am
very Cancer.
Majority Cancer. And it's in things that I live most of my life by. And so it's my sun sign, my Mars, my Venus, my Lilith, and then it's one other one that I cannot remember off the top of my head. But yeah, like I have a lot of Cancer in the aspects of my life that I live most of my life through.
Yeah, interesting. And that makes me, so that makes you super Cancer. And as you're saying those planets there, some of your followers might like to know your Venus sign, which is something I'm sure you could find with your birth time on the internet. Your Venus is about love, so that's what you're attracted to in relationships and sexuality. So that's a handy sign to know as well.
Yes, so with dating, so astrology, how can it help you? It can help with dating to the point where if I ever agree to date somebody, I do their chart before the first date, and that will influence my decision. I take it very seriously. And there are signs that if I see them in certain placements on a chart, I'm like, that is not compatible with me. I can't do it. No. And like your moon, which is all like emotion and intuition, and then Venus, like your love is a lot of like dating. And so I'll look at those 2 signs. And if it's not, I recently did one for someone who showed interest in me, and I stared at his chart and I was like, can I make this work? Can I? How does that? And the big one was Capricorn in Venus. And I was like, oh, you're a slow mover. Oh, and then we actually talked about it later, and he's like, yeah, you will not rush me in anything. And I'm like, okay, I don't know if I can go that slow, homie. And because his idea of like dating is like, oh, we'll talk like once a month. And I'm like,
yeah, that's too slow.
That's the other one. My Mercury is Cancer also. So like I need constant communication. And yeah, I was like, oh, so we are close friends, but I was like, I don't think I got it. I don't think I can date you, homie.
Oh yeah, look, astrology can save you so much time. It's the first thing I want to know about anybody new coming into my world, because then I can learn more about them and how to work with them, and if I want to work with them.
Yes.
And it's accurate all the time, right? Accurate all the time.
Yep. And it's like we said, these are the characteristics. You can be too much, too little, out of balance, toxic, but these are the characteristics. Like, and so I started working with someone years ago, and part of the interview was what's your moon sign? And I was like, Scorpio. And I was like really nervous. She's like, okay, I will work with you. And that was the first time I had ever like been in an interview for a business meeting. And someone was like, yes, if you say a sign that's not compatible with the group, you're not getting the job. And I was like, okay. And I fit in great. The Scorpio fit in great. But yeah, like it's business, love life. Like, so it's not only your chart, like learning the signs of other people, like we said, is one, it's just cool to know. 2, it's incredibly useful to be able to know that kind of stuff and help with clarity. Like there's tons of different aspects of your life that even, I want to say like mental, like your health, like mental, physical, emotional health. If you're a sign that's notoriously an overthinker, you might have anxiety. If you are a sign that's, I've had people be like, oh yeah, like you have tummy issues because of like where this is placed in your chart. And I'm like, holding my stomach going, really? It's just written out there for everyone to see. I get nauseated really easily, car sick too. Oh yeah. And so no, like I'm genuinely trying to think, and I'm not trying to do generalize, I'm not trying to do it black and white, but if you use astrology correctly, there's not any aspect of your life that it doesn't help with. It's not going to fix everything, but
exactly. So yeah,
it's useful. Like there's nothing that it's useless. I got nothing.
No,
like
it is completely useful. And just on the body, so that's another basic thing for people who don't want to get too deep in it. If you know the body area that is aligned with your sun sign, you'll realize that that is your weak spot, and it just is. I'm Capricorn, my teeth and my bones. That's where I get all my issues. Yes. And Pisces, it's their feet, and you're your tummy. So this is really helpful to know. It's not some random thing. This is my sensitive area. This is my weaker area. This is the area that tells me things are not quite aligned in my life. So that's really helpful to know as well.
Yeah. And I did not know the Capricorn one. My mom, like, we come from a dental family. My mom's side of the family is all dentists. So we're all very aware of our teeth, and we all work very hard to have nice teeth. But my mom, as she got older, she started having problems with her teeth. And it was like out of nowhere, there is no reason and everything. And yet, like, there it is, because we all take very good care of our teeth in my family. And no, it's Capricorn, it is teeth. Like, it is straight up chompers.
Teeth. Yeah, teeth and joints and the bone structures. And we see that across the board. My partner's Gemini ascendant, Gemini moon. So there, you know all about him already. So if you know a little bit, see, Lily just has to go click, 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 and she starts to get what my partner's like on so many levels. But Gemini rules the respiratory system, which is where he happens to have some issues. He's got some big issues that he's dealing with, respiratory system. So it tells us as well that it tells us about the bigger picture, really, the bigger picture away from this 3D reality, that he's got his you know, some concerning respiratory issues he's going through, but this is meant to be, and it just happens to align. It's not random. That's part of what he's come in with. So it makes sense. It shows us that things are not random.
Yeah, that everything falls into place. And I like what you said, like, it shows the bigger picture, because I feel like astrology, you can take a step back and see almost like a worldview, and just see everything as a whole, and everything is connected. Then you can also zoom in to like one aspect of one part of your chart, and that also has tons of information. So like it can be a big picture or small picture with astrology. It's so diverse, it's so vast, like it's so multifaceted that it really can help with all these different things in your life. And I think you're right, like someone starting with their sun sign, because I love starting with the big three, but that's not for everybody. Like, where you start really is with just learning, and you can do that through Google, you know, learning your sun sign.
That's not hard. That's right. And I'll tell you something about your sun sign that I think is vital to your well-being, is knowing when your two big full moons are of the year. This can change things up enormously. So we have two big full moon events each every year, and it's when the sun's in our sign. So so for me, being Capricorn, that my birthday's in January, so when the full moon is in happening in January, it's in the sign of Cancer. It's opposite. So the week leading up to that full moon is one of two biggest times of the year emotionally. So when our full moon in our birthday month is around, not usually the day, it's usually the week leading up to it, we are more heightened. It's like when we're coming into our moon cycle, we're more heightened, we're more sensitive, we're more intuitive, but our emotions are a bit more on the surface, so things can flare up. So they tend to be the times in most people's years where the big dramatic stuff happens and the arguments happen. Yes. And without knowing that, year in and year out, it would always happen to me And mum would be like, I've told you that that's the week that you need to just go away by yourself or not talk so much, and just, it's the full moon. And eventually at some point it kicked in. And I tell you, when you know that, you can mitigate so much drama.
Yes.
And then you don't have operations around the full moon. I mean, that's not just in our sign, but generally operations around the full moon isn't so good. Mum's always taught that because we bleed more on the full moon. So just that, you don't even need your sun sign to know a few things about the moon, but just coming back to the moon. So every birthday month, at the very least, have a moon calendar. Or get an app on your phone or something, because the week prior to the full moon in your birthday month, you need to just go chill. You just go chill, and you don't, it's not for making decisions, it's not for reacting, it's just for noticing. And then 6 months later, when the sun, for me, that would be when the sun's in Cancer. So for Lily and me, it's the same, but swapped around. So when the sun's in Cancer in July, roughly, the full moon will be in Capricorn, so it's the same thing. So this is twice every year. So if you know your opposite sign, which I went through before, and then you find those full moons and you get in your diary and you just put a few lines, this is a full moon this week, this is where I just need to be chill and not, stuff can happen, but I'm not going to be overly reactive. That can make your life heaps easier. That, I think that's mandatory, because I see this all the time, people telling me these crazy dramas, and they're right in the midst of their full moon week.
And it's a time of self-care. It's a time of excuse me, not only stepping back, but really upping your game with self-care, processing your emotions, that type of thing. I think following whatever cycle your soul has in astrology, like I know many people who do their rituals and their intentions around like the new moon and the full moon, so the moon cycle every year. And then I have other people who it's around the solstice and equinoxes, that it's like, yep, those are the big turning points for them. So it's whatever, notice them. Like part of astrology is self-awareness. Notice what's happening and schedule your life accordingly. If you know that the dreams are always real interesting around Samhain and Beltane, so the beginning of May and the end of October is when the veil is the thinnest, and depending upon your intuition, don't schedule a bunch of really heavy, intense things during that time, because you're going to be exhausted and cranky, and you're going to be like, but the dream said no. So you're going to freak out a little bit, which is understandable. But so you schedule. I love that. I love that you said that it's like put it in the calendar, set an alarm on your phone. Like
totally. I would never not schedule these moons. I would never. I have bumped into this so many times where it's gone pear-shaped because I've forgotten, or I've created some event or something right on my full moon, and instead of it flowing beautifully, there's going to be all sorts of upsets. It's like, shit, I didn't even realize the moon was happening. So now at the beginning of every year, I do go through my diary and I get all those moons in there, so I know. Yes,
I love it. I do around the new moon, I do like a magical support group. I'm like, all right, we are setting up for the next 28 days. What do we need to manifest? What do we need to set intention for? What do we need to release from the last month? So yeah, like set yourself up for success with astrology. It's doable. Like it's
totally doable. Yeah. And we didn't talk about those new moons that you're talking about. They're really important because that's like a new year.
Yep.
So particularly if you've got moon, you're strongly aligned with the moon anyway, depending on your birth time, etc., then it's going to be a lot of moons for you. But when I was talking about these two big main full moons we have two big main new moons as well, and new moon is like a new year. So that's like, especially in your birth month, that is your new year when that new moon is. That's when all the crap is behind you and you're feeling good and you're looking forward. It's totally the time to set intentions. And yeah, if you can do it with every moon and every new moon every month, that's even better. But that might be too much work. But that's really cool because if you're aligned and you've got a few water signs and what have you, or you're just a natural witch, that's just going to work. That's going to be really helpful.
Yeah, it's like we said, it's setting yourself up for success. Life is already complicated enough. Let's make it simpler with some cheat codes. And so the last question I have for you about astrology is, what is your favorite part of astrology? Do you have one? There are so many.
Yeah, what's my favorite part of astrology? I guess it's probably the moon. It has been the moon. That could change. So when I look at all of my books, it was all sun signs. I've got a lot of sun sign books. Then it was all ascendants and all our moon signs. But then I was looking the other night, I've got quite a collection on this stuff about the moon and how the different moons in different signs and how they affect us at different times. So I think I'm quite moony, and I've got Cancer moon, so I probably would be. So at this point, it's probably the effect of the moon cycles, particularly the new and full moons. Yeah, it's a good question. There might be more to that, but I think to keep it simple, it would definitely be that at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I love the moon cycle. My favorite thing currently, because you're right, it does change, is planets. I love the planets. I love their meaning. I love the way they correspond to the signs. I really enjoy their symbolism. I think another part, so that's like for me, and like, oh my gosh, this is what I find cool.
And that's what I'm studying at the moment. I'm studying the planets at the moment. So that's probably going to get bigger for me, that area. Yeah.
Yeah. And like for my business, I revolve a lot around the solstice and equinoxes. It's 4 big times a year that like the energy is just going to shift. And as most business people know, like you do things by quarter. And so I like that for business, like those high holidays, practicing them is really important to me, and actually having like holidays around them. So like gatherings with people and community and stuff is really important for me around those. I would say
that sounds lovely. I love this. That would be something that really interests me that I don't know too much about. It sounds really cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and like I like the meanings and symbolism around it. For like my big event of the year is the Samhain Symposium, and it's the weekend of Halloween, or as close as we can get to it, to Samhain. And it's all about community. It is a full day of just ritual and festival and fun and workshops and stuff to just build community and have a safe space for everyone to meet and be and exist. And so like that's really important. And I've had so many people look at me and say, when are you going to do one for every season? I'm like, I live in Minnesota, and Minnesota winter is real. So I'm never going to have one over Yule just because of that. But the other ones, it's like, yeah, I'm sure eventually if I have infinite amount of time and money and support, I would be happy to do this 4 times a year. But I don't, so I'm doing one big one. And then like the other ones are just like meeting with friends and colleagues over the smaller ones. But I mean, utilize the energy. Why not?
Utilize the energy. Totally. It's got me thinking about eclipses, actually, which is a whole other topic again, but just a little bit about the eclipses. There's big eclipses. We just had a few through earlier in Scorpio season, didn't we? And you do need to know when eclipses are. I mean, that's another helpful thing to diary, because eclipses can pull the rug out a little. They're like upheaval kind of times to get you more on track. And so if you know, just like everything we've been talking about, forewarned is forearmed. Really.
Yes. Yeah. I love it. So thank you so much for joining us and proving that you do not have to be a professional astrologer to enjoy astrology or to use it, which was, kind of the point of this. I feel like that's a really toxic myth, that you have to be a tarot expert to enjoy tarot. You have to be an astrologer to enjoy astrology. It's like, you can do things however intense or not intense that you want and still benefit from it. And I know that like you, with all of the modalities that you're trained in, that's a huge part of it. It's like, you are an expert in so many things, but then you also enjoy so many other things that just enrich your life. And that's one of the main reasons why I wanted this conversation with you. So after talking to you and all the followers getting to know you and stuff, what if they want to contact you, if they want to have a session with you, if they want to join that course you were talking about, how can people contact you? What can you offer? What you doing?
Yeah, thanks, Lily. Well, I have lightschool.nz. Lightschool.nz is my business. And at Light School, my focus is on bringing therapists or those who are wanting to move into doing light work professionally and skill you up with some super cool skills, which usually start with past life regression, like foundation training to learn how to take people into a past life so they can experience that for themselves, with the purpose of it being therapeutic. So shifting what's in your way today, getting to the actual root of what's in the way. And sometimes that root is in our childhood, which is why I teach inner child work, and that comes into the advanced training with past life regression. Sometimes the root is where our trauma is as a kid, or maybe it's 2 years ago when the accident happened. So skills to be able to take your client back to that time and be able to process and integrate and heal the trauma. So whether that's last year, childhood, past life, another planet, another dimension, I teach all of that cool stuff. So past life regression is coming up in February. That's an online training that you can look at on my website. I also teach spirit releasement therapy. So that's working with earthbound spirits. That's a fascinating area, spirits that haven't sort of moved over properly that can hang around and drain our energy. I also teach tarot. What else? I've got a super cool book. I love my book. Truth, Spirit, Love, The Essential Guide to Healing. And I wrote that so you can heal yourself and not have to come and see me or the other therapists, because there is so much knowledge you can have and skills that you can have to take yourself into processes. So yeah, I'm passionate about people learning ways that they can go deeper within themselves to release toxic emotions and belief patterns so they can live a happier, healthier, better life. And then they can get on and do the awesome light work, service work that they're here for. So that's my gig. I'm on Facebook, Dawn Grace Kelly, Spiritual Healer, same on Instagram, and yeah, lightschool.nz.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you so much for joining us. And for everyone watching, if you enjoyed this, which I hope you did because it was fabulous, please like, share, follow, and you can always reach out to me at lilyofthelight.com or comment below if you have any questions. We want to be able to help you as a community and to get you the answers that you need. And of course, reach out to Dawn privately if you ever want a session or to join one of her fabulous courses. We want you to learn and grow and be the fabulous hero of your own story. Dawn, thank you so much for joining us. This was amazing and so much fun. And you proved every point that I wanted proven in this episode, which is fabulous. So everyone watching, go forth, have a fabulous night. And thank you so much for joining us.